Get started. First of all, wishing everyone a very happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks for reminding us, Sunitha. I'm just kidding.
Thanks,
you too.
Right? Love is the most powerful emotion. Love is the only thing that we are really looking for in this world, right? Om. Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvam Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamrutatuhe Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. Just 1 second. Let me. Yeah. So we are, just finished about 6 verses in chapter 9. And in the first 3 verses, we saw how, first 3 verses of chapter 9, we saw how Krishna introduced us to this subject matter, which is essentially Ishvara Jnanam, the idea of what is that Tat. And we have seen that how this is actually in the 1 second, sorry. Chungappa. Now the location of the India. Okay, okay. 6th Street. I'm a F block, R 124. 6th Street, mid number 124. Oh, okay, okay, bye.
Is someone coming, Sunitha?
Yeah, yeah. No, I have to leave at 8 o'clock, my time, which is about 9:30 your time. So that's why the driver's coming to pick us up. Yeah. So we saw that, the first 6 chapters, it was all about the individual jiva, correct? So 7th and 12th is where Krishna is focusing on Ishvara, okay? And when he talks about this Ishvara, if you saw from the 7th chapter itself, he starts to ask us to focus on the fact that this Ishvara also, there are two levels. One is, of course, the Apara Prakriti, Apara and Para. Okay. Now, Apara is the materialistic world in which we all are in, right? And we said that this entire world of materials, which includes, all the stones, all the plants, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, all this is nothing but an expression of Ishvara. Okay. But this is the lower world. But then we have something which is even higher of the same Ishvara, which is called Para Prakriti. So we have the Apara and Para. And in the 7th chapter, already, we saw this being discussed. 8th chapter was, of course, a little different. But then 7th chapter discussed a lot. But in 9th chapter, you see him really going deeper into the Para Prakriti. Okay. So Apara Prakriti is this material world which is full of differences. Okay. Differences in the sense, differences in the fact that it is an animal kingdom, plant kingdom, human kingdom, and even among humans, we are different, small, short, black, white, brown, all those things. All that is part of the Apara Prakriti. Okay, it is an expression of that Ishvara. But in the Para Prakriti, there is absolutely no division. There is no difference at all. Okay. And one other aspect about this is that in the Apara Prakriti, that is Apara Prakriti, they are all finite and they are bound by time and space. So that is what is the Apara Prakriti, whereas in the Para Prakriti, it is even beyond time and beyond space. Okay. So this is what in the first 3 verses, literally, he has tells us to start to think about this. And he says, how it is a secret and how it is a biggest secret and everything. And then in shloka number 2, he starts to already talk about the fact that this knowledge itself is like, the most precious of all secrets, So royal secret on one hand can mean that, it is a secret worthy of a king at that high level, but it is also the most important knowledge that anyone can hope to get, the highest form, Like, in US, we always say that, if you have to apply for colleges, let's start at the highest, let's go to apply to all the Ivy League schools, Stanford, Harvard, and all that. Then we realize, okay, if I don't get admission, then I go to the next level, which is maybe U of M. And, I'm not saying U of M is at the second level. I'm just saying, from a point of view, right? So this is like the highest form of knowledge that anyone can hope to get. So that is what he wants to give us an idea. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a thing here to ask you, is there any questions at this point? Because last time, the last 2 classes were very, very deep, and just wanted to check. Any questions about what we're getting into? So just to remember that, here also when we look at this Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti, one other different way of looking at it is that one is manifested form, manifested form in the sense, whatever was in my thought, okay, I manifest it into a product. Like, for example, when somebody works on the design of a product in a company or design of a company, or let's take, simple example of, say, Geeta, before she started her travel company, it was only a thought in her head. That thought got manifested into an actual agency where then finally she employed people, and then she provided a service for so many people to go to different places and everything, right? So it is the same thing for Ishvara too, In the beginning, everything is an unmanifest form, and from the unmanifest form, you have the manifested form, which we are able to see through our five senses organs, So that is also one way to reflect upon what we are saying here. So we saw all this, and then we said this knowledge is of such high order that it is beyond the comprehension of a human intellect. So forget about animals. Animals can never, ever get this kind of knowledge because they are limited in their way of thinking. And even among human beings, you need to have a very, very purified mind, which is not going out into all these world, and it is focused on the higher level. So that only then one can actually get to it. And that's why you need this, we talked about, we need a lot of Shraddha. Okay. So then, after having introduced the first three verses in shlokas 4 and 5, is where we saw the first one verse, which is Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagatam Vyaktamurtina, Matstani Sarva Bhutani, Nurcha Aham Teshvavastitaha. This one, and then the fifth one, which is Nacha Matstani Pashime Yoga Maishwaram, Bhuta Brinacha Bhutasta, Mamatma Bhuta Bhavana. So in these two, we saw and we analyzed it very much, starting with where we are right now. Then we looked at some examples, and then we went to this point of trying to get, with the example of snake and the rope and everything, we convinced ourselves that we are living in this world of illusion. How can I say this? So I just put this one statement here. Last time I had just put let's analyze, but here I wanted to say that, for example, when we are young, we have an illusion of perfection on, say, the kind of friends we are looking for, or the partner that we are choosing to live with in our life and everything. And it doesn't necessarily turn out to be, but it's an illusion. There is a change, there's always constant change we think it's in the person, but actually it is not in the person, it's in the illusion in our mind, right? So if we can understand even this much, how we ourselves build all these illusions, then we live our life through that illusion. And because of the fact that we have actually built this illusory world of ours, we go through all the highs and lows, So this entire world is like that. So this is from an individual point. Now imagine when all of them put together, we are living in this bubble of illusion, right? So it is that total illusion is what we call as Maya. Okay. And this is the way that we experience. It's a subjective experience for all of us. And that subjective experience of what we see as a whole world is actually this whole, what we call as a jagat. It's only a kind of an illusion which is constantly changing. And this constant change is, perpetuated by the five sense organs. And it's all nothing but, what we are seeing, which is basically, which gets manifested in the world. So that's the manifestation of something which is unmanifest. So we saw this last time in shloka number 4 and shloka number 5. It's basically talking about how this Ishvara principle, which we said the para prakriti in the form of the apara prakriti, it pervades everything. Okay, that is in shloka 4, it was said. And then in shloka number 5, it talks about how that para prakriti itself is the substratum for all beings. And then finally in shloka number 6, you see that find all the objects, everything that is there is still an illusion. It is actually on, it is resting on that Paraprakriti, So all this is superimposed on that absolute reality. Okay. So this, now when we looked at it very carefully last time already. So in the first one, it says, by me, the whole world is pervaded in an unmanifest form. So to give an idea, because Arjuna looked at Krishna and thought about how can this manifested Krishna actually pervade everything. So Krishna says, no, even I am actually a manifested of my unmanifest form. So that is why he says, by me is pervaded all this world in my unmanifest form. This is very clear, very important to keep a note of that. What do you all think? Is this kind of clear, or any question on this thing here? So it's like, we talked about how, 1 second, sorry. Yenapa? Yenanga? Huh? Now, busy, okay? அந்த அட்ரஸ் கொடுத்தேன் உங்கள்கிட்ட, அந்த அனுப்பிச்சிருக்கேன், லொகேஷன் அனுப்பிச்சிருக்கேன், அந்த லொகேஷன் பாருங்க. ஓ சரி சரி சரி. So then you see that where he says, by me all this is provided in my unmanifest form. Like the example I gave also last time is like the wave, a wave in an ocean. A wave is an individual wave, but it's actually that aspect of the wave is what is there throughout the ocean. Okay. I know it's hard to believe that, but it's easier to, if I say that I'm the one which is everywhere, it's hard for us to believe that, because we are so conditioned to think that I'm this person who is conditioned by this body, So how can this physical body be everywhere? But then if I use the ocean and the wave example, it's a little more easier, because we know that in that ocean, everything is nothing but water. So that water which is there in one wave is the same water which is there in many waves, right? So that's how he's saying by me is pervaded. And then this next two things is where we went into all these examples, like how the thread, the cotton in the form of thread is what is there in this whole cloth. And the important thing, so I just threw a couple more slides in here in relation to this is, now we may say, why do I need to know this? Why do I care? Okay. It sounds too high philosophy, and I don't really see a relation of it in my life now. So why should I even worry about it? Correct? So that is why, to me, this particular thing was very, this joke, what I saw, just nothing connected with Vedanta, but I happened to see it, where it says, where can I find the ocean? The ocean is what you are in now. This is where I'm looking for the ocean, and there isn't anything to look for, and all you have to do is to look, So what is really the significance here? Why is it important for us? And that is why that, again, that ocean in the example is so very important from a very, very practical standpoint, So I'm just turning this, bringing it all the way down to our level to show that, when you look at this ocean and you see all these stormy waters here, it's actually nothing but water. Now, water is something, it has its property where it can be very flexible and it's open to new possibilities. It's not rigid. It's not stuck in any one way of doing things, So just like this water, I can think about, how in my own mind, and we talked about love here, February 14th, love here, which is, why are we not able to love everybody? We are not able to do that because in our mind, we have built misconceptions or preconceptions about other people, right? So how can it be like this water, which is so flexible, so pure, and just be able to completely absorb anything and everything, be whatever I can, instead of we tend to identify ourselves with the shape and the form and the size, in this case, if it's an ocean. And in real life, we tend to identify ourselves with how the person looks, what the person said, what the person has. So I'm comparing that ocean and the wave and trying to show how I can actually empty my mind of all misconceptions and everything and see how I can live this world. So that is the relation I'm trying to make here. By trying to in and through everything, if I can only identify myself with the essence of the individuals, rather than identifying myself with what I think the person represents, So then it becomes easy for us to live such a beautiful life in so many different ways, And we can be very efficient in whatever we do. We can channel our energy in the right way. We can actually celebrate every human being, for their own unique qualities and preservative, perspectives, I guess. All this we can do, and we really have the most important thing is we can have the emotional toughness to face challenges and immediately bounce back from any kind of setbacks, because we know that it is going to change, and that is why sometimes I feel this ocean and the wave example is so beautiful, because there is no one moment that this face of this ocean is going to be different, right? It's constantly changing. So too in our life, things constantly change. So why can't I focus on the changeless rather than focusing on the change all the time? We tend to identify ourselves with the change, and therefore we get disappointed. So that's just one side thing bar on this. And the second thing, which practical speaking, where it comes, which really helps us here is, he says, all beings exist in me. Now, we are used to looking at, like, for example, I'm going to give this example of pot and this gold and heat and fire and all this, right? We always tend to look at it as saying that the clay is made of mud, and I'm sorry, the pot is made of clay. The pot is made of clay, the pot is made of mud. That is how we look at it. We always look from the form and then look at what it is made of. If we can shift our perspective to looking at, this, that is why the statement is important, from looking that the pot is in the clay, so all beings exist in me. So the me part of it is the clay, and all beings. So we have that's why I had different pots here, different kinds of pot. They all exist in clay. They all exist in mud. Okay. Same thing with the gold ornaments. These are different kind of ornaments, but they all exist in gold. Okay. And same thing with this heat and fire. You have, the fire existing in the heat. So just different ways, so that is the way, the significance. So bringing back to the significance of these shlokas is we are the individuals are residing in the world, not that the world is made of individuals. So we are always used to saying that, I'm just trying to think of what is the pledge of, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, right? So that is the US pledge. We always look as we are the individuals and we are in the world. But if I can look at it just a little differently, the world is made of individuals, the entire, I don't know, does this make sense on changing the perspective? Because I'm as deep as the shlokas are, but how can I take this and relate it to where I am today? Does that make sense so far? because that's what these shlokas are trying to get to, you know. Yeah, Meenu, you wanted to say something or? Okay.
Hari Om.
The
Yeah.
ocean, if we remember that we are nothing, everything is nothing but water. So that's very clear.
Yeah.
That everything but Brahman is God.
I mean, as much as these are examples and analogies, but like, you know, when you're young, right, the children have their pictures of their idols on the wall, right? We need to have pictures of these oceans in front of me constantly to remind myself, you know, I'm the water, I'm not the wave, I'm the water, not the wave. So, you know, if I can get to that, so that's when these things help. Yes, Suvarna, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, Hari Om. I mean, the water and the wave. Yes, as an example, as it is easy to understand, but when it comes to actually implementing it in a day-to-day life, like today is, like you pointed out, is Valentine's Day, and it's all about love. But because of our existence of likes and dislikes, we are not able to express that, the true meaning of love. It is confined to a few people or few, it's confined, it is not
Correct.
universal. So
Correct.
that I mean, trying to understand that I as an individual, BMI, Suvarna has to be above and beyond this likes and dislikes, and I mean, but still, that is something that is when you're explaining, oh, it is so easy, I have understood everything. That is the feeling I get.
Right.
Once we say, we do the ending prayers and we are out, it is like, okay, some of it has stayed and some of it has gone. Namaste,
Correct.
bye bye, karke nikal gaya. So it's like, that is how it is. So that's something that it's like we have to keep working at it and not let it
Correct.
go. Namaste, bye bye. So
Correct.
that's
Correct.
something that.
I know.
So these individuals are in the world, not the world is made of individuals. It's a very powerful sentence as far as I am, where I am at. I like the sentence, I like the statement, but can I actually fully 100% say I am with it? Unfortunately, because of my existence of likes and dislikes, I don't think I'm there yet. But I would love to get
But the
there.
recognition, you know, the very recognizing the fact that I'm driven by my likes and dislikes, that itself is a first step, you know. And we are creatures of habit. So we need to constantly, because of our habituated way of living, we have strengthened our likes and dislikes. But now we have to create a habit to undo that whole thing. Unfortunately, undoing takes much longer, and undoing by action will also take a long time, you know. But listening and making the change can happen immediately because it is in the intellect. And in the intellect, if I'm convinced, I can do it immediately, you know. So that is why Shravanam is the most important thing as a sadhana, and therefore, because it's only the intellect I need to be convinced. I can keep saying that, you know, love your neighbor as thyself. Okay. I can go to my neighbor and say, I'm going to love you, but there is something he does. Immediately I get mad, you know. But if I have in my intellect, I'm convinced, even if he does something, I might probably forgive him because I might say that, you know what, he's also the same mud that I am the mud. We are only different form of mud. Um, then it becomes a little more easier. So that knowledge comes in, of course, not easily, because it depends upon how much of anger I have at that moment, right? So, but we are a work in progress, like they have, I'm sure Michigan will soon start to have many of those barriers saying it's a work in progress. So like that, we are a work in progress. So, up to here, it's kind of very sort of clear. We can even be convinced. But this next statement is where, we start to really question, because now Krishna is saying that, okay, up to now you have understood, and I've given you enough examples. Now I'm going to throw another googly at you, I'm going to throw something which you're not going to be this, because I'm saying that, but now I'm telling you that, guess what? Previously, I told you that all waves exist in me, or all pods exist in me. But now I'm telling you, you know what? Even that is again at one level of understanding. So these are all in our evolutionary process. So, we are trying to, coming back to the very first point I made before, when we started off, I said, we want to understand who that Ishvara is. And we are now being told that Ishvara is everywhere. This whole world is nothing but Ishvara. And we're all forms of Ishvara, and all these forms exist in Ishvara, or in Ishvara, maybe we can say that. And the whole Ishvara exists on Brahman. That's how we have seen so far. But now Krishna is saying, guess what? I'm telling you, that is, if you have understood so far, and of course, as Suvarna rightly pointed out, I'm living it, I get it, and I'm able to immediately understand that point. If I have established that level of progress in my life, when people talk about, oh, I'm not progressing spiritually, what to do, these are the steps. To this step, if I also have some kind of a journal and I'm trying to figure out, how quickly did I get out of my anger? How long did I hold on to a grudge? And how quickly, then I come to this point where I'm able to immediately understand that finally everything is nothing but Ishvara. After I come to this, now I come to the next level of evolution, where he's saying that, if you think that the whole world of this names and forms are really touch, feel, I can see with this one, then it is, and I want to tell you that even that is nothing but an illusion, he's saying. Okay. And the simple examples, of course, is like how a magician is able to create something out of nothing. Okay. Just like that, in reality, what he's trying to show is that he's saying that those forms and this, none of them really exist. Just like this example of the snake and rope, we know very well that on the rope, okay, there is actually no snake, but I am seeing the snake. Okay, I am seeing the snake and I'm actually making a big deal about the snake. The minute I understand it is nothing but the rope, the snake actually disappears. There was really no snake. So if through my understanding, I'm able to see that the snake disappear, okay, I will also be able to understand in my mind that the snake was never there. Correct? The snake was never there. It's only that I myself created the whole snake. So this is where, I wanted to show this thing, we are actually living in an illusory world. But how is that? And that is where we, this Matstani Sarva Bhutani Nachaham Teshvavastitaha, that is the thing which says that the whole world is, resting in me, but this Shantakaram Bhujagasayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gagana Sadrisham. The word here is this word Gagana. So Bhujagasayanam is the thing about where you see that, where you say that the Lord, where is the Lord? The Lord is on this bed of snakes. Okay, but that is only the first place, first level of understanding. But the second line where he says Vishwadharam, he says, the snake is the substratum for that Lord, where the Lord is lying on the snake itself. But in the second line, he's saying the snake, its snake does not support the Lord is supporting the whole universe. Padmanabham Suresham, Vishwadharam. He is the one who's supporting even the snake. So in the first line, he says, the Bhujaga Shayanam, Lord Vishnu is resting on the snake. But in the last line, he's saying the snake itself is on the Vishwad, on the Lord, So the Lord itself is the substratum for that snake. And Gagana Sadrisham. So just like, he says Gagana Sadrisham, which is like the clouds, Now we know that the blueness of the cloud is not there, but we see the clouds. So you see that relationship is brought even in that simple shloka of Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam, So that is why in shloka number 5, he brings out this aspect of this, we call this as relationless relationship. They are in me, I'm not in them, which is the beings are there, but Brahman itself is just a substratum, and it is providing a substratum because of which, just like the screen, on a screen, a movie is playing, okay? But the movie is not real. The movie itself cannot exist without that substratum, right? So that's basically what he's trying to get here. And, so he gives this, I'm not, the waves, they come and go. Anything which comes and goes immediately is actually not real. It's mithya, okay? It's just a delusory misconception at a total level. Now we may say, yeah, but I do see the world. I do see everything. How can you say it is not real? So it is not real from many different levels. On one level is because they come, they go. So they don't exist. They don't exist in 3 periods of time. The only thing, according to this definition for Satyam, right? Satyam is Abhatyatvam Satyatvam, which is it has to exist in all 3 periods of time, past, present, and future. Okay. So only that is considered real. Anything which doesn't exist in 3 periods of time, they are not real. Okay. So that's why we give this example of snake, and then we give this example, I said Gagana Sadrisham. This blue color is nothing but an illusion which is created by, even physics gives you that, it is just a scattering of light waves. So too Krishna is saying that, this whole world is nothing but, at a total level, it is the divine power of Maya, of Ishvara. It's like the home theater system, where the minute you turn on the home theater, you can just convert your whole basement into, the whole universe if you want, right? So it's nothing but in that sense. So that's again the very powerful is, then what is the reason, the truth? Well, it's because it cannot but be, One may ask, what about Brahman? Does Brahman really exist? Well, we've answered this in many ways. We say that Brahman is there because without Brahman, even this world cannot exist. So ultimately, the only thing which is real and which exists all the period of time is that Ishvara, Ishvara, which is a form of Brahman. So God is the only thing that exists. There is nothing else beyond this. And that is what he brings out very powerfully. Of course, this is a shloka from 2nd chapter, where he says, at no point did I ever not exist, and at no point will I cease to exist. In chapter 2 itself, he had talked about this. Natve vaham jatanasan, natvam nemi janadipaha, nachaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayamataf param. Okay? So, at the end of the day, like I just put this question here, even an ornament requires gold for it to be what it is. But what does gold require it to be, So just some things for, I'm just put some questions here for us to kind of contemplate upon, So that is the ultimate source where we need to go to, to recognize who I am really. And why is it important? Because only that, yeah, go ahead, Geeta.
No, the previous one. Can you explain a little bit that gold, an ornament requires gold for it to be what it is, but what does gold require for it to be? What
Correct.
does the second sentence mean?
For what does gold? So it depends upon at what point am I attaching myself for, when I think that I need a bangle, okay, for sure for a bangle, I need gold, okay. But then when I attach myself to gold, okay, I said, I just like, I think I had one a picture in one of the previous slides where there was a bar of gold. When I attach myself to that gold, then do I care what that gold is? Because I already got the gold, okay? So I'm not now wanting for it to be a bangle, wanting for it to be a necklace or anything. But if I say that I need a necklace, I definitely need the gold. But when I have the gold, I don't need any of the other different forms. So it's actually a very powerful. I'm glad you brought this. Every time when I put a sentence up like this, I kind of contemplate upon it. But then when you ask the question, I feel there is even more that needs to be thought about, which is there is once I put my goal as not the bangle or necklace, but I put it as gold, automatically my mind, think about it, in your mind itself, your thoughts kind of die down. There is nothing more. Okay? Because you're no longer thinking that I want bangle necklace and all that. So too with Brahman, okay, the thought here is I am going towards wanting to recognize my nature to be that Brahman. And to me, that is the most powerful thing. So therefore, if I go towards wanting to be Brahman, nothing else is needed, because that Brahman is complete and it is my higher self. Okay, that is my absolute self. And it is a self which is complete in itself. It is fulfilled. It doesn't want to be anything more. Whereas when I am this jiva, I'm always wanting to be something else, wanting to do a lot of things. Okay. So to be conscious and to be complete is nature of self. And therefore I want to go there. And that is what the implication of this shloka number 6 is taking you to,
Okay.
I know this is still a little more pretty deep, and it is hard for us to get to that point of it, because we are so used to individuality, we have kind of sort of fallen from a very high level to this level of wanting differences, wanting different things. Whereas if I go towards the source, then I find that there is less need for anything else,
Right. We have to really contemplate and
we have to contemplate on it. So exactly.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
even if you can, just take kind of a picture of these two things and just think about it, like whenever you have a little bit of time early in the morning before you start the day, that's when this sentence, like you pointed out, the ornament, and this sentence, they are something you can contemplate and kind of journal this or something, and you will see how so that is why this shloka is important, because again it's saying that here actually in shloka number 6, because it's hard for us to contemplate upon Brahman, he gives a simple example of comparing actually a space to that Ishvara. In the last 2 classes, we have talked about how the buildings rest in space. It's not as if the buildings are enclosing the space. If you go to an architect or a design engineer, he will always talk about spaces. Nowadays, that's a big thing, right? Spaces. Like even parks, when they design a city, they will all say, oh, we have to create open spaces. As if we are creating an open space. Space is always there, But you see how, again, look at this thing also. We listen to all the architects and design engineers, and even in our mind, we also talk about the same thing like that all the time, which is fine. When we are in the Vyavaharik world, we have to use it. But immediately a mind should be able to snap out of it and say, who's really creating the space? The space is always there, Like in Ishavasya Upanishad, there's a story about how the gods, they wanted to have a race with Ishvara, but wherever they ended up, Ishvara was already there, So space is always there. So why are we trying to outrun space or something, space is all pervading. So that is how Ishvara is. So space is a formless thing, and, so that's what 4, 5, 6 we talked about. So in 7 to 10, now what he's trying to give is this one. Like so far we've seen, we have understood about forms living in this. So, for example, we see the blue sky with our eyes, and we also see things and people on this earth being created and destroyed. And through all this discussion we've had in the last 3 classes at least, we can at least to some extent say that I understand that the sky's blue color is nothing but an illusion. Okay? But how can I explain this world where things are created, things are going back to creation? We see this in front of our eyes. Even last week, I heard of one of my relatives who passed away. And we see this happening, everything. But how do I understand this is an illusion also? And that is what in shlokas 7 to 10, he talks about how this Lord is really the sthiti laya karanam of this, how he is the karta, and he is the sthiti laya also. Laya means which goes into dissolution. So sthiti is the creation part of it. Srishti is the creation. So he's a srishti sthiti laya karanam. Srishti is the creation, sthiti is maintenance, and laya is dissolution. He's the entire thing. So let's chant that. Sarva bhutani kaunteya, sarva bhutani kaunteya, prakritim yanti mamikam, prakritim yanti mamikam, kalpakshaye punasthani, kalpakshaye punasthani, kalpadau visrajamyaham, kalpadau visrajamyaham. So sarva bhutani kaunteya. Sarva, all, bhutani, all beings, O kaunteya, they merge into my prakriti. Okay, prakritim yanti mamikam. Mam ikam, so into me itself, this entire prakriti, which is my prakriti. Then kalpakshaye punasthani. At the end, when does it happen? At the end of a kalpa. And again, at the end, beginning of next kalpa, I bring them forth. Okay. So this is what he's saying, which is very simple. If you look at it, is nothing but the same Newton's law of conservation, law of conservation of matter and energy. Nothing can be newly created. Even an ounce of matter cannot be created by anyone, including God. Okay. So we, of course, say, Ishvara created me, Ishvara does this, but we are looking at it from a very high level, So even though that Ishvara is omnipotent, omnipresent, he says, I do not create the world at all. Okay. Very powerful statements, actually. The world was already existent in me. The only difference is that, it was in a seed form. So anything and everything, okay, even when somebody passes away, we think, that's it. That being is now out of this world or whatever, but not really. There is the what we call this is Vyakrita and Avyakrita. So the gross form of it actually disappears back into the mud, back into the earth. But there is this subtle part of it which goes back into a seed form. So that's the one that he's trying to say that, And this was actually covered in the 8th chapter itself, Avyakta Dini Bhutani, Vyakta Madhyani Bharata, Avyakta Nidinan Yeva, Tatraka Paridevana. In the 2nd chapter, when Krishna was telling Arjuna, what are you weeping for? You think that the person has gone. Actually, they have not. They have actually gone back into an Avyakta, unmanifest form. And then in the 8th chapter, again, he says, Avyakta Vyaktayaha Sarva Prabhavantya Ragami, Ratrayagami Praliyanti, Tatra Vai, Tatre Vyakta Samyake. So basically, he's trying to say that there is that intermediate level before, the person, you go from Vyakta to Avyakta and Avyakta back to Vyakta. So the whole world comes into manifestation, goes to unmanifestation, and then it comes back. So the whole thing happens. And that's how, so then in Shloka number 8 is now the explanation of the Jagat Karanatvam, which is how is Ishvara the cause of the world. Okay. So how he comes back again and again, the whole cyclic part of it he explains. Prakritim swama vashthabhya visrajami punav punaha bhutagramamimam kritsnam bhutagramamimam kritsnam avasham prakriter vashat. So he says, it's basically, I myself have given life to, so having animated my own prakriti, I come back again and again, send forth all this multitude of beings, which they come helplessly. Avasham prakritehe vashat, they are controlled by their own prakriti, by their own prarabdha. That is how they keep coming again and again back into this world. So aham punaha visrajami. So somebody may ask, how does this happen? It's just that there is, it's a cyclic process. The whole cycle just keep going on and on and on. It's not like as if they were created from the scratch and they've gone back. They just go back into a cycle again based upon their own. In 8th chapter when we saw the rebirth part of it, that's the same thing. That so there is. They just keep coming on and on. As such, Ishvara doesn't have any say on it. It is every individual's say is why the person comes back. So then in this last verse of in this part of it, he gives some more explanation. So he says, Nachamam tani karmani, nibhadnanti dhananjaya, udasinavadasinam, asaktam teshu karmasu. So again, he says, how at the end of the day, they seem like as if God is creating, okay? But he said, they appear to be mine, but they are really not my doing as such, okay? And that is why I'm not Krishna. That is, Krishna is not bound by what the creation is, They do not bind me, O Dhananjayam. Udasinavat, like one indifferent, I just sit back and enjoy the whole drama. Okay. Udasina, I'm just very unattached, very indifferent. And I'm asaktam, I'm not even bound to them. I sit unattached to all these acts here. Okay. And maybe we
You
will
said
stop
you
here.
have to leave,
Yeah,
right?
go ahead.
You said you have to leave by 8 o'clock.
7:55, yeah, 5 minutes before I have to.
It's
So
already 8 o'clock for you.
yeah, just 2 minutes, correct. So I wanted to bring out the Sakshi Bhava and all that. We'll do it next week then. Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Let me stop the
I think recording